A very good morning to all the teachers and welcome to Gurushala's 2-day online teacher training on strategies of virtual learning. On behalf of Gurushala, I, Mashood, and Shelly would like to welcome all the teachers. Today we are being joined by teachers from all across India, right from the south in Karnataka to Uttar Pradesh to Maharashtra and East. So a very warm welcome again. Uh, Dear teachers, lockdown and the global pandemic has created a very unprecedented situation where all aspects of the society have been affected. But especially the teaching and the student community has been affected in a completely unprecedented manner. But what we have seen in the past few months that as schools have remained closed, teachers have made a lot of efforts and have used a lot of different innovative techniques to reach out to their students, to teach them, and to ensure that the teaching learning process continues as well. And in order to assist the efforts of our teachers and to support the teachers in this process, Gurushala brings to you this 2-day online training session in which we'll be sharing certain strategies and sharing certain ideas and pedagogical techniques using which you can make the learning and teaching process more effective using technology, which many of us are already doing. And we also see how we can make students independent learners. I think this is a great opportunity where we as teachers can ensure that students take up more and more responsibilities for their own learning process and also become less dependent on teachers and become more self-directed. A Gurushala is an initiative of Indus Towers and Vodafone India Foundation and is implemented by Pratham Education Foundation. In this 2-day training session, there are certain things that we would like to keep in our mind, which Shelley would like to share.
Right. So once again, a very good morning and a warm welcome to all the teachers. So yes, a few things to be kept in mind during the training are as follows. The first is keep a notepad and pen with you during the training so that you can note down all the important points during the training and you can refer to them at a later stage. Secondly, we will be asking you questions and you can answer those questions in the YouTube chat section. In case of any queries, clarifications that you have, you are requested to ask all those questions or queries in the YouTube chat. Thirdly, we would request again all of you to give your answers or queries or questions in English or SMS language. Fourthly, a Google form will be shared at the end of the training, which will be a form of assessment. So we would want all of you to attempt the assessment form, which will be shared at the end of the second day. And since we all want that you all are sort of linked to us, you all are connected to us, we would want you to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel and Facebook page so that you are aware of all the events, all the activities that Gurushala does time to time. Taking forward, Mashood, one important thing is also there that we have a certificate of accomplishment which will be shared with the teachers. The criteria for certificate of accomplishment is as follows. So at the end of day 2, we will be sharing an assessment form and all the teachers who take an attempt at the assessment form and receive 50% and above score will be given a certificate of accomplishment. So this is the criteria for all the teachers to get a certificate of accomplishment from Gurushala by attempting the assessment form and achieving a score of more than 50%.
Right. And we would want our maximum teachers to complete the task which is given on day 1 and also attempt the assessment form. And those who, like Shelly mentioned, there is a cutoff. So teachers who will be crossing the cutoff will also be receiving the certificate of accomplishment. And we hope that maximum from our audience are able to be eligible for that. In addition to some of these activities, we are also looking at two very interesting activities in the duration of this training. The first one is fastest finger first. So we'll ask you certain questions and you'll have to respond to them. And the fastest finger first is how that will go. And the second is guess the word, where we'll have a puzzle for you and then you'll have to guess the word. So with this, we would like to bring in front of our audience the very first activity where you have to guess the word. A picture will be shown to you where there'll be six hidden words, and within 60 seconds and 1 minute, you have to guess what the correct words are. The timer will start very soon, and we would request all the teachers to share their answers in the YouTube chat section.
Right, Mashood? So the timer has already started. If we see this image, colorful image actually looks like that of a home environment. So we all can see that children at this time are learning from home, and this could be one kind of an environment that children are in, where we can see siblings are fighting, they are learning, they are also playing with each other. So yeah, I mean, this kind of an environment could well be existing in our homes as well.
Absolutely. In fact, many of our teachers and our parents also, and they can completely relate to the fact that children are making the house a playground, because they have friends, and very rarely other students are able to go out and meet their friends, and they are playing here. So we have started
Right,
getting some of the responses also.
right.
Mrs. Meethi Chadda has guessed the word mirror.
Right, Mashood, Mohit sir is telling about, he's telling that I can see the word cat here. So teachers have already started giving us answers. Varnika ma'am is telling that she can identify the word cord here.
Yes.
Yeah, so,
That's very interesting. I'm trying my best to also identify these words. I'm unable to find them. So, are some of our
right.
teachers? I think yes.
Mashood, the timer is also ended. Aradhana ma'am has been able to find out many words: broom, cat, mirror, tiles, cord. So ma'am says all these words are hidden in this image. Umer sir says that there is mirror, children, refrigerator. So yeah, Mashood, I mean, many answers have come from teachers. Let's also have a look at the correct answers now. Uh, so yes, these were the hidden words, the six hidden words. First is tiles, then mirror, couch, straw, cat, and cord. So yes, congratulations to all the teachers who have actually given correct answers here. We have also marked the places where you can identify the word. They have been marked with red boxes. Ashut?
Yes, and as you can see that this was quite a challenging task where some of our teachers have very appropriately and correctly identified the words. And this image, in fact, represents the challenges which I think we, as the whole community of teachers and students, face presently, where students are at home, and the teacher is at a distance, and we are trying to think of different ways of virtual teaching and learning. So some of these challenges which teachers are facing across the country, and as a program, we've been working with many teachers across India. We see that teachers are facing multiple challenges and trying to find different solutions. So let's see some of these challenges.
Right, Mashood. So, like we've been discussing, teachers have been facing certain challenges, certain problems during this time of lockdown, and because these are not normal times. During normal times, we were in a structured setup, we were in a school environment. But now, when the teaching and learning is happening from home, things have changed, and because things have changed, the problems have started arising and they've started coming up. So, yeah, like you mentioned, let's have a look at few problems and challenges that teachers across the country are facing. One of the problem of the teacher is, how do I assess the students remotely? A very important point that teachers are considering, and it is a concern point. बच्चों को, for example, how do we assess them? How to evaluate them? So it is important to know कि ये कैसे कर सकते हैं. Second is that how do I learn new skills as a teacher? So, for example, we know that things have changed. We also want our technical skills to get enhanced because we will be taking remote classes. We already are taking remote classes. So, what kind of skill enhancement as a teacher I will have to work upon? Thirdly, how can I use technology for teaching effectively remotely? So, what kind of usage can be there of technology? How can technology be integrated in this whole idea, in this whole process of teaching and learning during this time of lockdown? And fourthly, how can I plan my lessons effectively? What kind of a lesson plan, what kind of a teaching strategy, or for example, the processes, methodologies can I adopt during this time to make this whole learning process more effective and more engaging as well for the child? So these are certain problems which teachers are facing, and there could be many more problems. which are coming up and are being faced by teachers. Gurushala is also connected to more than 3,600 plus schools and more than 18,500 teachers. So, if we talk about problems, there could be many problems, Mashu, and which are being shared with us by the teachers as well. So, these are certain problems that teachers are facing. Now, if we talk about Mashud, the one of the problem here, like one problem is that how can I plan my lessons effectively? What kind of a lesson plan do I make? What kind of a process or planning? How can it be done more effectively? How can it be sort of structured in a fashion wherein students are interested, they are engaged, parents are also interested. So, what kind of a lesson plan do I create? So, this is one problem that teachers are facing. We would want you to share certain suggestions on that.
Right. So lesson planning is one aspect which forms a very central part of any teacher's daily routine, and that is also something which continues even after the schools have discontinued the classes. Now these classes, while they are not happening in person, but they are happening virtually. So another aspect which has to come is the planning process, where we have to also now consider additional factors of what kind of an environment does the student have, what kind of resources does a student have available at home. So these are some important aspects which we will be now discussing. What how teachers This is in fact a very great opportunity for teachers to polish their planning skills while teaching virtually. And I think the role of the teacher becomes even more important now, because they have to deal with many more stakeholders in the planning process. So if we see the very first step of how we can develop more and kind of polish our planning skills even more, the first aspect which we have to cover is knowing the student's learning environment at home. Now, this is a challenge because in the school we have one classroom, all the students have the same access to this teacher, they have similar infrastructure, the learning environment is the same for all the students. But at home, the learning environment is different depending on the type of home you have, the family you have, the resources that you available have at home. So because of that, the learning environment of all the students are now different, and now it's important to understand how can we identify and map the learning environments of students, and basis of which we'll have to identify the resources and the strategy that we use to deliver our virtual teaching. So some of the parameters, we would like to present in front of the teachers a list of parameters and a checklist using which teachers can identify at a class level, at an overall class level, what is the overall learning environment of our students at home. So the first parameter is of internet connectivity, of how uninterrupted the internet is. So if the internet connectivity is good, if it is stable, then we can use much heavier softwares. For example, you can use Zoom or TeamViewer to conduct online lectures. If the internet is not very good, then we might have to depend on other aspects. The second aspect is accessing internet from computer. Does the child have access to a computer, or is the child only able to access the internet using a mobile phone? The third aspect is supervision of parents. Of course, parents play a very important role in terms of if the child is completing all the tasks, the classwork, the homework, is the child making notes. But what level of supervision is required, is available? Is the parent, for example, able to help the child complete the homework and solve questions? If that is there, then basis we can plan. The fourth aspect is a conducive learning space. Now, this is a more challenging aspect to identify, yet very important. Does the child have the adequate physical space? Does the child have the right socio-emotional space at home? And basis of the learning space and how conducive it is, we can identify certain strategies in our planning process based on which we can conduct our virtual teaching. The fifth aspect is availability of reference material. This is very important. Uh, I think many of the students now have the new textbooks as well, and for those who don't, they have the PDF copies as well. So we have to understand at what point are our students in terms of their access to reference materials. So that is something which is very important. And finally, the responsiveness on WhatsApp. So I think WhatsApp. This is again an opportunity where WhatsApp is being used by a lot of teachers through WhatsApp groups to engage with students, to share with them material, to have some teachers are doing quizzes on WhatsApp groups. So a lot of innovative ways are being found by teachers to use the WhatsApp what we have to also understand is how responsive are the students on WhatsApp. On the basis of these six uh, criterias, we will be able to identify what kind of strategies and what kind of resources and softwares and technology can we use. So with this, let's see an example of one of our teachers who had made a checklist recently in one of our trainings.
Right. So one of the examples, like Mashood mentioned, is of one of our teachers who had created a checklist for her classroom. So the checklist looks like this. In her class, essentially between 50 to 75% of the students had an uninterrupted internet connection. So which basically means that when she is identifying the software or identifying the platform, she can think of it from this perspective that between 50 to 75% students, they have access to uninterrupted internet. Secondly, if I talk about the accessing internet from computer or from any other technology, so more than 75% of the students were accessing the internet from the computer. So the kind of learning material which she will be sharing could be such wherein the visual content could be more probably, or maybe the audio content. So what kind of learning materials can be shared basis this kind of parameter, the teacher can identify and make a plan. The third is supervision of parents. So more than 75% of the students had supervision of parents facility, in the sense that they had decent supervision by parents being provided. So help was provided by parents and they could be supervised um, at some level. So this provision was there for her class of students. Fourth, less than 50% of the students had a conducive learning space. So while the parents were able to supervise, more than 75% of the students had supervision facility by the parents. The learning space, in the sense like socio-emotional space, or what kind of a support was provided by parents, in the sense were they supportive of the fact that this kind of a learning, remote learning process is effective. That kind of an understanding, that kind of a mindset, for example, was there amongst parents, but it was with less than 50% of the students' parents. So that is the fourth point. When we talk about the availability of reference materials, it was understood that between 50 to 75% of the students, they had access to reference materials, which could be textbooks or which could be digital content as well. Uh, and when we talk about, for example, the responsiveness on WhatsApp, so less than 50% of the students, uh, they were responsive on WhatsApp. So probably when we talk about, when she was planning about what kind of strategies can be shared on WhatsApp, what kind of material or what kind of engagement can be planned on WhatsApp, she knew that less than 50% of the students, for example, they have a response on WhatsApp. So maybe there has to be a change in the way she's pitching things, or in the way she is sort of accepting responses, or giving a trigger to the child to answer on WhatsApp groups. So these are essential. This was, for example, one a very simple plan which was created by one of our teachers.
Yeah, right. Shelley, so these are some of the checklists which the teachers can use, and we would be very happy to also know from the audience what additional points can be added to this checklist for their own, for their own purpose. How do we use this checklist to decide what kind of strategy do we have to use? If we could also share with our audience.
Right. So a very simple format again, Mashood, with 6 parameters to be kept in mind. And when we are categorizing the classroom, I mean the students' available environment resources, we can think of these parameters. Now, when we talk about what kind of a strategy comes out after identifying the checklist, one parameter, one sort of point would be that what kind of a teaching material uh, is to be shared with the child. So, for example, we know that more than 75% of the students are having access to internet through computer. So, when we, for example, identify our teaching material, we can probably think of certain visual content or certain activity-based content which is aligned to, for example, the computers as well. So that teaching material can be identified through this kind of a checklist. Then the second point is providing the parents definite steps for supervising student learning. So like we saw that more than 75% of the students had decent access to decent supervision from parents. Definitely, as teachers, we will have to share certain strategies and certain steps wherein we want to involve the parents. So this could be the second strategy where I plan my classes on. The third is focus on learning material which can be utilized in diverse spaces of learning. A very important point, like we discussed, the kind of learning material which is being shared, it has to be in accordance with the diverse spaces of learning. So, like you also mentioned, Mashood, that children are in a different environment at this point, right? And every child may have a different learning environment. So, when we are identifying the learning material, we will also have to keep in mind that what kind of a learning environment could be there in amongst various students. So for example, some could be of course audiovisual content, but there could also be, when we are sharing any project idea or activity we are sharing, we can think of what kind of resources are required and will they be available, for example, for all the students or not. So when we are sharing learning material, this is a small thing that can be kept in mind. And the fourth thing is creating clusters of students as per responsiveness and then tracking their progress. So when we are creating, for example, student groups, we can create them as per the response behavior of the students on the WhatsApp groups, so that we can accordingly plan and strategize our techniques. So, for example, if we have a group where we have less engagement from students, probably we'll have to think of a different strategy for that particular group. Whereas if we have a group where we have very active students, then we can think of creating certain different type of strategies or activities for that particular group. So this kind of a teaching strategy, Mashood, comes out from a very simple checklist which is now shown here.
Right. And this is a checklist which we'll share with all our dear teachers who are joining us after the training as well. And teachers can feel free to add more points into this based on their the context of their classroom as well. So let's actually now test our minds and understand how we can use such a checklist to help students, to help identify the different challenges which students are facing and suggest certain solutions. So we like to bring to you the next fastest finger first aspect, which is, can you help learn Millie better? So we'll see an image in front of our screens, and in this image we can see that there is a house and there is a child called Millie, and you can see some of her family members there. What are the different challenges that this child is facing during while studying from home, and what are the different solutions that we can offer? So with this, our timer is also starting, and we would request all our teachers to share their ideas on the YouTube chat section with us.
Right. So we have to identify four possible challenges the child could be facing while she is in such kind of an environment during the time of learning. We already have started getting a few responses, Mashood. Teachers have started sharing with us that there is a cluttered space. So Rajinder ji says that the space is cluttered, and probably we'll have to think of certain ways where the child is in a appropriate learning space. There is a clean space in which the child is learning. So this is one input that we have got from one of our teachers.
Right. This is a challenge, I think, which many students may face and many teachers may face, because in when we are in school, there is discipline, and there are the teachers, and there's an environment of discipline. But at home, we are not completely in control of the child's learning space, and we are getting more responses.
Right. Pushpalata ji says that there is lack of privacy distracted by interference. So there is a lot of interference in which the child is actually studying, and there is no privacy. With this, our timer has also ended, Mashood. Shweta
Yes.
ma'am says, for example, the room is very noisy. So that could be a problem for the child as well. Anju ma'am again says the environment is messy. So this is also one problem that teachers are sharing.
Yes, and Mr.
And
Pramod Kumar has mentioned, like, the parents seems to be arguing and the objects are in a uneven manner. So many of these challenges have been identified by the teachers.
right. So Mashood, like we can see here that teachers have come up with a lot of plausible challenges that could come up when the child is learning in such kind of an environment. Now, when we talk about, for example, learning, when we talk about the students are learning from home, and since the whole idea of this teaching and learning is supposed to be embedded during this time in a fashion where the children are automatically sort of they are inclined towards this teaching and learning process in a fashion where students can sort of independently learn. They can plan also at the same time with the teachers. So if we talk about, for example, certain elements that can be kept in mind when the child is also preparing for such kind of classrooms, how can a child, for example, plan their learning? This kind of a learning effectively can be done. So, what kind of certain steps can be taken by a child, and how does a teacher play a very important role in helping the students plan this learning better? So,
Yeah, it's I think it's a great opportunity for students to also be part of the planning process. So generally, the planning is done by the teacher, but this is a great opportunity where students can contribute to the planning aspect by being self-directed planners as well. And some aspects on which teachers can help students to become planners as well and help students plan their learning process is first of all by creating a routine and following it. So setting up a daily routine, sleeping on times, getting up on time. Exercise is very important, I think, because now again, a lot of students are spending most of their time at home, so that physical activity is important, and taking a bath, getting dressed up. So that routine is something very important, and while the parents have an important role, teachers have to also communicate to the parents that this routine is followed. The second aspect is being prepared for class. So just like in normal day, we have school, and coming on time is important. If you don't come on time, there is certain punishment. So these aspects, that discipline has to be created. So students have to be prepared for the class. We'll have to, for example, the students have to make sure that what notebook is to be ready. If we are having a live Zoom lecture, then the notebook has to be ready. The stationery and the device, whether it's a computer or phone, has to be ready. And any material which is sent by the teacher before or after the class has also needs to be ensured that the child is going through it. The third aspect of how a child can plan his or her learning is to keep the space ready. So like we saw in the picture, that there needs to be a space of peace of mind. While even if the child doesn't have a separate room, but they should maybe have a separate corner, at least for the time when the teaching is happening. So the space should be ready. There should be generally a quiet space at home which can be used for studying, and it should be cleaned before the class starts. Taking notes, just like in normal classes, students should take notes, irrespective of whether the teacher is taking a Zoom class or whether is sharing certain other resources on WhatsApp. So marking the important points. If there are any videos being shared by the teacher, then the questions asked in the video should also be answered, and the notes should be made. And the responsiveness of the child is, I think, very important, because in normal times what we see is that the students are able, the teachers are able to understand what the responsiveness of the child is. Now, using technology, it becomes a bit more difficult. So certain communication methods can be used. It could be emojis, it could be some other methods through which the response of the child can be captured, and we can make it very clear to the child that they have to continuously respond. So these are some aspects of how the child can plan their learning, and the teacher can orient their children on this self-learning, self-planning process. But at the same time, the role of parents is also very important, Shelley.
Right. So, like you mentioned, these are certain things that can be kept in mind and can be shared with the child for making their learning process much better and integrating them into the planning activity of this whole virtual classroom idea. Now, like you mentioned, very important point, parents will play a very important role in this whole exercise of teaching and learning. So, before we talk about what kind of a role can parents play in students' learning, let's bring our another activity, fastest finger first, where we would want to ask from our audience regarding what kind of three ways do they think can parents help their children concentrate on studies during lockdown. So, what could be three ways in which parents can help their children in concentrating on their studies during the time of lockdown? So the timer will also start now, Mashood, and we would want all our teachers to share their ideas and their thoughts on this particular question. Yeah.
Absolutely. The learning environment is at home, so any kind of classroom rules or any kind of any kind of plan which is made, the students have to play. I mean, the parents have to play an absolutely important role. So, what do teachers think? We are getting some comments as well, Shelley.
Yeah, so Neha ma'am says that we, like you mentioned, proper socio-emotional environment, giving them timely meals is very important so that their nutrition is factored in. They have a holistic development as well. Asha ma'am says that students should have a separate room for studies. A very important point. A learning space and a learning environment inculcates, for example, an element of appropriate learning space. So that is important, which should be provided and should be kept in mind by the parents. Maria ma'am, for example, says parents can keep the child's timetable. So creating a routine is important. So creating a timetable is again very important. Our timer has also ended, Mashood here, and we have got certain answers from teachers. Nidhi ma'am, for example, says supervision and monitoring. Supervision by the parents and evaluating them, monitoring them constantly is important. So that is also one important aspect.
Right. And I think that some of the teachers have covered a lot of different aspects. Like Shweta ma'am is also talking about how if there is some confusion, so if wherever the parents can help in terms of helping with academic work, that is also there. So I think both academic and non-academic aspects, academic in the sense of helping with homework, helping solve questions, correcting any mistakes in the work, and the non-academic aspects, which is the environment, the space, the socio-emotional environment, both are very important aspects that parents have to cover. So Shelly, let's see some of the based on the responses which the teachers have given. What are some of the different aspects which where parents can help students study at home?
Right. So now let's look at a few points uh, in which basically the parents can help the students study from home. The first is providing them appropriate learning space. Like many teachers also shared, giving them an appropriate learning space is very important. Keeping in mind that when the students are learning, they are not sort of interrupted by probably their siblings, or they do not have any noise in the background. TV is not, for example, running in the background. So this is very important, and being cautious of these certain elements can be it can be helpful for the child as well. Second is ensuring note taking, again a very important element. So when we see our child learning through a virtual classroom, we should ensure that the child is making, for example, appropriate notes, is noting down the important points, referring to the textbook material. That is also very important. Thirdly, being aware of the teaching plan. So yes, we have to, as teachers, also keep the parents informed about the kind of teaching plan we have for our students. So for example, if there is a weekly plan that we have created, we can probably just do once a week call with the parents and let them know of, this is my idea, this is my teaching plan for this week, so that parents are also appropriately involved and they are engaged in this whole idea of teaching and learning. So important element that as teachers we should keep the parents involved. Fourthly, accountability for homework. So clearly, this can be a very important element which can be given to the parents, making them responsible for homework. So whatever daily tasks we are providing to the students, we can keep in mind that we ensure the parents are keeping a check on their homework. There is certain time which is allocated in their timetable for homework only, and also keeping in mind that all subjects homework is getting covered. So, of course, asking them the right questions about homework, have they completed or not, we can, of course, tell the parents to sort of keep a check on this as well. And the fifth point is, like we mentioned, ensuring that there is a holistic development of the child. It could be academic, it could also be non-academic. So when we talk about academic, keeping a check on whether they are doing their homework, they are taking notes, they are attending classes. And when we talk about non-academic, keeping a check on their interests, their hobbies, for example, the extracurricular activities that they can do. Probably if they like, for example, dancing, sketching, playing. So all these factors are also kept in mind, and they are integrated in the process of their timetable itself. So when we are preparing timetable, we can sort of keep some time for physical activities and for their hobbies as well. So yes, ensuring a holistic development of the child is also an important element which can be taken care of by the parents.
Right. And like you mentioned, Shelley, that it is an important opportunity for us where again we can involve parents in the teaching learning process. I think that's one important objective which also have as teachers and as a community, there's a responsibility that parents should be more interested and involved in this process. And what this also means, Shelly, that there is this opportunity of collaboration among the community members as well.
Right, and it is also very important to note that the role of community, the role of, for example, various stakeholders in who are a part of this community. It could be teachers, it could be students, and it could be parents as well. So when we talk about the collaboration skills, this time is also a very good time for all the teachers to sort of hone and enhance our collaboration skills, Mashood. So, like we already spoke about collaborating with the child to help them learn better and to help them plan their skills better, we again saw how can parents be involved. We thought about that also. We discussed certain elements where parents can be given responsibilities. Then, if we talk about the students and the teachers as well, it is also very important to keep in mind that collaborating with the teachers and our community is very important during this time, because when we were in schools in our normal times, Major, there was one thing that used to happen in schools was that uh, staff room was one place where teachers automatically used to meet each other, discuss certain problems, strategies, and because they were teaching the same set of students. So it is important to also during this time collaborate with other teachers and to be aware of certain practices, certain teaching ideas that other subject teachers are implementing. So collaborating with the other subject teachers is also an important element which should be kept in mind. Now, if we talk about, Mashood, the collaboration skills, like we have been speaking about collaborating with students, then parents, then teachers. What kind of collaborations can be done with teachers? If we talk about certain checklists or certain elements that can be discussed with teachers, if you can just tell us about few elements.
Right. Collaboration with teachers, I think that that's something which, like you mentioned, is already being done in normal school days. And now, because of the distance, it becomes a slight challenge. But if we talk about the learning environment, so if we have one class and the class, there's a class teacher and there are subject teachers who are teaching that class, the learning environment of the class remains the same. Because it's the same class. So the first aspect where the collaboration can happen is to discuss the learning environment checklist. So, for example, the class teacher can be responsible for creating a classroom checklist based on the plan which we had just shared some time back. And that learning checklist, that learning environment checklist, can be shared with the rest of the subject teachers as well. Based on that checklist, the rules of the students, the various resources and the techniques and the strategies which you use, which softwares will you use, and what should be the priority of the teaching can be discussed between this class teacher and the subject teachers. The third aspect is where you can discuss new teaching ideas that you may be implementing this week. We can, for example, I think many teachers are also doing Zoom calls with the rest of this teaching community as well within their school to understand what are the lessons which they'll teach. So if we have the checklist, the learning environment checklist, and the teaching plan for the next week, and we look at it together, then we'll be able to effectively collaborate and implement a plan which works for all the subjects. And finally, a joint call with parents can be done every week to discuss progress. So one option is where each teacher can have a joint call with the parents. Another option is where the class teacher can do a con call with the rest of the teachers and then reach out to the parents, so that all the subject, the concerns and progress of all the subjects are communicated with the parents, and they can also be brought in this. So talking about parents, Shelly, like we were mentioning the role of parents, there is a lot of scope of collaboration with the parents as well in the teaching process itself, where they're more directly teaching. And they say that it takes a village to raise a child. Now, of course, most of us live in cities. So how can the whole community, especially the parents, be involved in actively teaching?
Right. So when we talk about collaborating with the parents, it is an important element to keep in mind that there are parents who are very active. We identify certain parents in our classrooms who are very active and who are very concerned about the teaching learning process of the child. So, for example, we have also seen certain parents who actively participate in this whole, like PTMs are conducted, so they are very active and they're very participative in nature. They also discuss about various ideas and strategies. So what we can do as first step is that we can identify parent volunteers. Now, when we talk about parent volunteers, these are basically those parents, like I mentioned, who are active, who are proactive in the sense that they participate in the teaching and learning of the child, who also have discussions with the teachers, and they are also overall holistically involved in this whole process of learning. So we can make identify those parent volunteers, and we can make them group facilitators for coordinating with other parents. So one challenge that parents and teachers have shared with us is that many parents do not understand this idea of virtual classrooms, and they do not believe in it. So there could be other challenges as well similar to these. And what we can do is that we can identify those active parent volunteers, and we can tell them to have sort of common calls with those parents who are not supporting this idea of virtual classrooms, and for various other problems as well. So we can sort of tell them to actually have a conversation with them, conduct certain group calls, convince them, tell them the idea of the remote learning, why is it important. So the facilitators can be given such kind of a role, parent volunteers. Second is requesting their feedback on how students are responding. A very important point, because parents also want to be engaged. There are certain section of percentage of parents who want to be engaged in the teaching learning process. It is also important that we request for their feedback. They may have very good suggestions on how to engage students, what kind of strategies or what kind of activities can be done with students. So I think requesting for their feedback is also very important. Then the third is co-develop skill targets for students and request parents to develop the material. Very important again. So, for example, we were talking about various extracurricular skills which can be covered in the holistic development of the child. So, apart from academic, there are non-academic skills as well, which needs to be covered for a child when the child is learning from home. So, we can identify certain skills which need to be focused upon. So, for example, we can talk about their interests. We can talk about, for example, their physical activities. So what kind of other skills need to be covered as well apart from the academic background, they can also be discussed with parents. And identifying the expertise of parents. So we all know that parents also have different professions. So what we can do is we can give them a responsibility that there could be one parent who's in the banking sector, for example. There could be one parent who's an engineer. So we can tell them that they have to talk about their, professions, and make the child aware of what kind of professions are there, and this whole idea of, learning, wherein we are trying to sort of focus on interdisciplinary learning through various themes that parents can also cover. So, for example, we can ask the parents, the active parents, to sort of design a very small learning material for students where they can talk about their own professions, and they can aware them how, for example, the banking sector works, what are the terminologies. An engineer or electrical engineer can talk about what are certain elements which are covered in their industry. So we can also ask the parents to probably create certain learning material which can be shared with students, which can also be a package for them to hone their skills apart from the academic, section. So that is also very important, that can be covered with parents. Yeah.
Right. So, Shelly, let's take some comments and questions from the audience. So, Mrs. Ruzda Niyamat is expressing a concern, saying parents should cooperate, but most of the parents think that teaching is only a teacher's responsibility, and why should I keep myself myself and busy in this? So, ma'am, I think that's a very valid concern, and but this is exactly an attitude which we as and the teaching community and the education sector have to change. And this is something which we have to confront, because parents, why this attitude that parents that some parents have, that you send the child to the school and the rest, everything the school can take care of, that is something which right now, again, they have to they have to acknowledge this responsibility which they have right now, which is that this is the lockdown. Students are spending 24 hours at home, and then even if the, like, I think one of the teacher also mentioned that maybe some parents might not be completely equipped education wise to help the students in answering questions and all of that. But here, at least, creation of the environment is something which is very important. The second aspect is, which Shelley was also mentioning, about different vocations, right? Parents are involved in different professions. So they can come and take lectures. For example, they can take lectures on how to start a business, or they can take lectures on how to study to be, let's say, a teacher or a doctor. So now these are aspects which the parents have a responsibility, and we have to make some, if not all parents, will make some of the parents aware and bring them into this teaching process as well. So these are some, this is one concern, and I think that is something which we can think about. I think one of the teachers had also commented that we need to collaborate with students for their teaching process as well. And I think we'll bring that comment as we are able to find it. This is another aspect, Shelly, where we look at how the students themselves can now be an equal, an equal participant or a very important stakeholder in the teaching learning process, because the students are no longer inside the classroom right now. They are there in the virtual sense. So how do we collaborate with other students to ensure that the students are learning? So for that, the very first point which we have to look at, which we can use, is in fact make students partners in the planning process of activities. For example, celebrating a literature fest, so the language teachers can take a lead on that, and they can give responsibilities to certain students to organize things online, celebrating days, for example. Now, giving responsibilities to students is also a way of appreciating and recognizing the good students. So those students who do well, they can be given certain responsibilities like this. The second aspect is you can have a weekly newsletter. So you can ask a group of students to create a weekly newsletter on activities of the class and share with everyone. In fact, in the second day tomorrow, we'll also be talking about an online software which can be used, a very simple software which can be used to design posters, design newsletters, and design worksheets, etc., which we'll discuss. You can use The students can use something like that as well for the projects. The third aspect is identifying a group of students that can plan and conduct panel discussions. And these could be discussions related to themes like, themes related to the curriculum. It could be related to the environment. It could be related to pollution. It could be related to the lockdown. These are different topics on which students can organize panel discussions, and we can give the responsibility completely to them. They'll be in charge of designing the session, of organizing it, of doing the coordination. So these are some skills which we can develop in the students and also collaborate with them. And finally, we co-plan sessions on social and emotional needs of students. For example, on issues like tolerance, how can we be a tolerant society? Relationship with parents, how can we better improve it? And reaction to things around us. And now these are aspects which can cover topics from different subjects. They could be from math, science, environment, languages, and all the teachers can also be involved in this. For example, we keep having speech competitions or Model United Nation. So these aspects can be continued in this process as well, where students are given the main responsibility. So Shelly, these were the broad aspects of planning which we have discussed in today's session.
Right. So we are also seeing certain comments here, Mashood, where teachers are talking about the fact that it becomes very difficult to convince parents on this idea of teaching and learning from home. So many parents, for example, do not get convinced. They are not aligned, which poses a problem in the teaching learning process also, and they are trying to find out ways. So, like we also discussed, I'm referring to all the teachers. We discussed that there could be certain activities that can be done with parents. Identification of parent volunteers is a very key element that can be done, and this is a larger problem of mindset if we talk about, wherein we want to sort of actively make the parent engaged in the teaching learning cycle, but at the same time also want that they participate, and they also give their valuable suggestions. Now it does become a blocker when the parents do not agree to it, but we will have to find out certain alternative techniques. So for example, active parents can do certain sessions with those parents. We can again share certain videos or material with those parents, which makes them aware of why learning from home and why this virtual learning is important during this time of lockdown, because there is no other way to complete the curriculum and to focus on the academic learning. So these are certain ways why it is important, how can it be done, and of course engaging other active parents could be certain suggestions that can be taken forward. So
Right.
if we now if we now talk about, Mashood, here we have discussed about the planning aspect. We talked about why planning is important, how planning can be made better. during this time of lockdown. So, for example, being aware of the learning environment is an important element that teachers can factor in while they are planning their classrooms. Again, how students can be incorporated and can be collaborated with to make this whole learning process better for them. That we discussed. We also spoke about how parents can play a very important role and what kind of responsibilities can be allocated to them. And overall, for example, how this whole collaboration amongst various stakeholders of the community, which could be teachers, students, and parents, how the collaboration element can be inculcated in this whole process of teaching and learning. So we spoke about these certain elements, Mashood. And if we go forward, this whole idea of learning, be it learning from home or be it learning inside the classrooms, we all know that the teaching during this whole teaching and learning process, we are impacting certain skills of the child, because we all are aware that when we create a lesson plan, we identify certain learning materials, we identify certain sections, how to sort of introduce them, how to deliver them, how to conclude the topic. So whenever we are planning our sessions, there is an inherent process of skills which are being developed inside a student also. So, what are these six skills which get honed or which get enhanced in a child or in students? Let's talk about those skills essentially. So, yeah. So the core learning skills, if we talk about six core learning skills, now as per Bloom's taxonomy, these are the six core learning skills that get enhanced in a student. The first is remembering. So, for example, what kind of information is to be remembered by the child? Now, when we talk about, for example, science concepts, automatically there are definitions. The child has to remember the definition, has to work on that skill of, wherein the child is understanding, remembering the concept, and trying to apply it. So, remembering is one skill which gets enhanced during the teaching learning process. Second is understanding. Again, wherein the child is understanding the concept, trying to decode what the concept is about, and then the application part comes in. So, understanding is the second skill which is getting enhanced. Third is applying. So if we talk about, for example, mathematics, automatically we know that there are certain application skills which get enhanced in a child, wherein the child is sort of solving a problem, trying to sort of find a solution to a problem. So that is application part. And the same application is also applicable to other subjects as well. The fourth skill is analyzing. So analyzing a situation and then sort of trying to create a response for it. So in social science, for example, we have various situations wherein we have to analyze certain topics. So World War II was a correct thing to happen or not. So the child is able to analyze the topic, understand about it, and then he or she can present their answers on it. So analyzing is the fourth skill. Fifth is evaluating. So judging the value of information. So whatever information has been provided to them through any concept for any subject has to be evaluated. So they will evaluate the information, try and assess it, and then create a response for it. So this is the fifth skill which gets enhanced. And the sixth skill is creating. So using information to create certain information. So whatever my knowledge bank is, whatever information I have received, what new can I create from it? So it could be, for example, a new project information. It could be a new project activity. So creating some activity or creating some material from my learned knowledge or my learned information is something that is also factored in when we are teaching the child in this whole process of learning process. So learning cycle essentially includes these core learning skills which get enhanced in a child.
Right. And I think these six skills which Bloom's taxonomy lays down in front of us, these are skills which, if you have a particular knowledge, these are the six levels of development of that knowledge. One big objective, Shelly, which our teachers are trying to achieve right now is to how can the teachers, how can we help our students develop these core learning skills independently as well? Because I think like many of the teachers are also expressing certain concerns in with us in the chat is that how do we how one involving parents is a big challenge, and also they're trying to do their best, but also getting students to pay attention and to develop these skills and learn the concept independently is also another challenge. So we would like to present in front of our audience a pedagogical method using which you can develop core learning skills independently among the students. And this goes by the word of watch, think, and practice. So this is a method in which watch, there are certain resources which you can use. So I think all of us are using some form of digital resources as well. In the classroom, we use a combination of the textbook and digital resources. Watch essentially looks at those resources which help students understand the concept visually. Also, using these visual cues, they are able to learn independently and also enhance their observational skills. So there are certain resources which we'll discuss now under watch, in which these types of skills can be developed. The second aspect is of think. Once the information has been given to the child, by whether it's through a book or whether it's through a PPT or a video, then we have to make students think about that concept. So how, for example, can the students build connections between different concepts within the same subject, and also later between different subjects, topics with different interdisciplinary topics. How can the students relate the concepts to the real life is another important objective. And also, how is we have to develop the skill in the child to ask questions from their own, so that they can use those questions to deepen their own knowledge and kind of give direction to their inquiry. So thinking involves those resources which develop these faculties. And then you have practice, which is essentially to build expertise. So once the child has the concept in the grasp, then how do they, for example, build expertise in the concept, they relate to the different concepts and become a holistic and self-directed learner. So, in the rest of today's session and tomorrow's session, we are also going to talk about what kind of digital resources can we use for watch and practice, and also what kind of strategies can we use in our online and virtual learning to implement these resources, to deliver these resources to the students. So, to understand that, Shelly, we would like to go to our next fastest finger first and understand what skills do teachers feel are enhanced by watch. And I think some of our teachers have also shared some ideas on, they're sharing some videos and resources with children. What kind of skills do they aim to develop through watch?
Right. So, like you mentioned, Mashud, that there are certain skills that get enhanced through various learning materials that are being shared. And one possible structure of enhancing the core learning skills could be watch, think, and practice. Teachers also have started sharing their answers already. That some teachers are telling, for example, learning, revising the topics can also help learn and remember anything for more time. So Binduji says that one skill, for example, could be wherein they are revising the concepts, they are sort of learning the concept which is provided to them, and remembering is one exercise that or is one skill, for example, that is getting enhanced through the watch section. Uh, Tanisha ma'am says, Mashood, that imagination is something that gets enhanced. Again, a very important thing. The child is thinking about certain elements of the video or the textbook material which is being shared. So that is also an important thing which gets enhanced.
Right. And like this, so I think the timer has also ended. And we have multiple responses as well, which teachers are sharing with us. Uh, so let's see, let's use some of the responses which teachers have shared with us. I think Himanshi ma'am has talked about memory and observation as well. So let's use some of these responses to present to our audience what are the different skills which are enhanced in a student through watch. So the very first aspect is clarity in concepts. I think that is something which many teachers here agree with as well. That visual references help students understand the topic in a better way and be more clear in terms of the concept. The second aspect is also looking at better observation skills, which is probing and reflecting on the questions. So whenever we are sharing a resource, be it a video or a concept video or a different type of video, we should always try and give certain questions and certain pointers to the student so that they can observe the video, and also based on the questions try and find more answers from the video itself. If we give a video and we don't if we are unable to facilitate, or we should ideally facilitate some kind of a thinking process within the child as well. And the third aspect which the skill which is developed by watch is connecting with daily life. So for example, seeing videos or things around, based on the things around us, they help the students relate concepts to the daily life. So these are some skills which are developed through watch. Shelly, let's now understand how the Gurushala portal, which I think many of our teachers are also looking forward to understand how the portal offers what kind of resources to the students and the teachers. What kind of videos or what kind of resources are available within the watch section in Gurushala, and how can we actually use some of these resources? What kind of a strategy can we use to deliver them?
Right. So, Mashood, talking about Gurushala, Gurushala is a free of cost online capacity building program platform. And if we talk about what all sections are available, I have opened here the Gurushala website. You all can open the Gurushala website by entering the URL as www.gurushala.co. This is the home page of Gurushala, as you all can see. The website is essentially available in two languages, English and Hindi. It's a bilingual platform, so we can, if we want to see the website in Hindi, we can change the language from here. Also, in order to access the Gurushala portal, the sign up process essentially can be done through three ways. One is the Gmail account, second is the Facebook account, and the third is through your mobile number. So you can sign up on Gurushala platform through your Gmail account or Facebook account or your mobile number. Now, talking about various sections, what Gurushala offers. So, we can see here there is a courses section, there are content library, there is a research corner, and then there is a staff room. So, now let's go ahead and have a look at our content library, which is basically a library of digital content which can be shared with the students. Now, talking about this content library, we can see if we scroll down, we can see all the resources which are available. So, this is how it looks like. The content essentially here, if we click on, for example, we have a section here of partners. So, we have certain content which has been picked up from through various content collaborators. So, we have collaborated with a lot of content partners, and these are certain collaborators whom we have worked with, and their content can be shown here. Is shown here essentially. For example, we have content from Arvind Gupta, we have Foundation IIT, we have Make Me Genius content, we have IIT Kanpur content. There is Bodhguru. Similarly, if we go ahead, we can. If I click on the next page, we can see other content collaborators as well. We can see Khan Academy, we can see Mokomi, Fuse School. So these are essentially the content partners whom we are working with, and their content is showcased on Gurushala as well. If I want to see, for example, any content which is specific to a partner, I can click on this particular partner and I can click on view all, and I can get access to all the content pieces which have been showcased by this particular partner. Now, talking about, again, if I go back to my content library, I can see here all the resources which have been put in. On the left, I can see certain filters. So I can see, for example, a subject filter. If I want to filter my content subject wise, I can do that. I also have a filter for class. So there is class specific content as well. Talking about the content type. So, for example, what type of content is there? Is it a concept video? Is it a practice question, or is it an introduction video? So we have certain filters for that as well. They also can be seen using this particular filter. Next is if we want to segregate the content language wise. So we have content which is available in 5 languages currently. So we can also filter the content language wise. Then there is duration. What type of media, for example, is it a video, audio, or a document? So this is how we can essentially filter the content as well. And we can have a look at our specific content, which could be subject wise or class wise or content type wise. So this is how we can sort of filter the content in the content library section of Gurushala. If I filter, for example, introduction video, like Mashood, you were asking that there are certain there are certain materials which are available on Gurushala for watch section. So if I talk about, for example, one particular content type, which could be introduction video, and if I want to see the video in English language, if I filter this, I will be able to see the content which is again only introduction video and is in English language. So, for example, let's have a look at one introduction video which has been put on Gurushala.
Chotu, I have a riddle. Would you like to try and solve it?
Oh, sure. What is the question?
I'm a number. Subtract 6 from me and you will get a cricket team.
Hmm. I am a number. Subtract 6 from me and you will get a cricket team?
Right. So, like we saw here, this was a very small introduction video on expressions. We can utilize it for various sections when we are teaching, for example, expressions, or we are teaching, for example, an equation, which is again another mathematical concept. So, a video on algebra, essentially a very small video on introducing a topic. So, this essentially creates curiosity amongst the students because it ends with a question, Mashur, right? So,
Right.
so if we for example share this introduction video, we should also keep in mind that we share certain leading questions which are linked to the video and on which the child can actually think upon and then get back to us. So
Right.
important thing is to also utilize this introduction video in a fashion where the teachers, where the students are given an opportunity to think and then independently sort of solve the question and get back to us. Yeah.
Right. So Shelly, as we can see, some of our teachers have actually given the answer to the question given in the video, and in fact,
Right.
this is precisely what the objective of this video is. That you introduce. And there are a lot of introduction videos which you will see on Gurushala and other platforms. You can use some of the introduction videos to start a conversation with the child and make them, do their own research and study to find the answer. But there can be one concern, Shelly. What if the child is unable to answer the question correctly because it ends with a question? What if the child is unable to answer the question correctly?
So now a very valid point, Mashood, that it is possible that the child may not be able to sort of give a correct answer. But one important thing is also, Mashood, that we are trying to give an environment of independent learning to the child. So we have been talking about how a child can learn independently, can think upon certain concepts and get back to us. So I think the first step is to give them a platform, give them an environment where the child is thinking about certain things. And then, of course, because whatever assumptions they are forming on any particular concept, that will be clarified towards the end. That have to be handled by the teachers towards the end by showing them another concept video or explaining them in detail. So I think it is important to take that first step where you give an opportunity to the child to think independently, come up with certain answers, think of a certain topic, of a certain concept in a structured fashion. And then, of course, the important thing is if the assumptions are incorrect, we will be able to clarify them towards the end because ultimately we have to explain the concept in detail. So, this is one thing that we should try and inculcate in our teaching and learning practice, where we try and give an opportunity to the child to think and then, of course, get back to us on various things that they've understood. So, yes, it is important,
Hmm.
Mashud. I think that giving a
Right.
platform to think independently is very important.
Yes, and in fact, this is a great opportunity where we can make students learn independently because we are using online learning. So, if we have to show a concept video, so I think many of our teachers have also commented that they are using resources which are smaller in size, bite size, so that they're not very long videos which takes a lot of space and takes small delivers the concept in less time. So, is there any strategy which our teachers can use to share online internet resources with students and help develop this online self-independent learning as well?
Right. So, like we have been sharing a few resources, there could be a small concept video, there could be also an introduction video. Now, when we talk about how to utilize these learning materials, what kind of a strategy or sort of method can be used, an approach which can be taken forward, that could be of a flipped classroom machine. So, flipped classroom essentially, for example, is an approach where we try and share certain content with the child initially. The first step is to share certain content, and then thereafter we try and tell them to read about it, to research about it, and to make certain sort of notes, and we also give them certain questions. So wherein we are not explaining the concept to them in the first place, we are giving them an opportunity to think about the topic. We are sharing certain material, relevant material with them, and giving them certain questions, of course, to think about that topic, form their assumptions, their understanding, and note it down and provide answers to those particular questions. So this is a flipped classroom thing. If you talk about a normal classroom, essentially, Mashud, generally what our approach is that we sort of start a chapter or a topic by showing them certain digital content, or we try and show them certain textbook content. We make them underline certain important points. This is the regular way of teaching, right? Now, if we talk about a different approach, like I mentioned, the flipped classroom approach, there we can think of certain elements. There are certain strategies or approach where we share the content first without intervening and explain the concept to the child in the first place, and then thereafter, of course, we explain the concept basis understanding what the child has understood on their own information, whatever they've seen.
Right. So, can we see an example? And before we see an example, I think one question which which Anaga Deshmukh ji is asking is that do we give the resource before the class, during the class, or after the class? So, if you can share some of the steps which goes into the flipping the classroom approach, and how do we share the resource, especially in this context where teachers are using Zoom and WhatsApp and other aspects as well.
Right. So, like we can see here, Mashood, that the first step when I'm planning my classroom of this flipped classroom approach, the first step is to select a video or a portion of a book which explains the concept for sharing with the students. So, essentially, I will identify the learning material, which could be digital in nature or it could be a textbook material. I identify that portion of the textbook or the resources, and then I share it with the child. The second step will be to give that video and the portion of the textbook to the child with leading questions. Important element is to provide questions with the material which is shared. So that the child is able to think upon those questions, is able to understand from the material which is shared, and provide their answers to those questions which have been provided. The third step will be to tell the students to think and write to the questions. So till now, we have not explained the concept. We have just given them the content. We have given them certain leading questions, and we will ask the students to think about the questions basis the material which is shared after they have watched it, and then give answers to those questions. And the fourth step would be to start the discussion with the students' answers and then thereafter explain the concept in detail. So, important point, we as teachers have intervened, we have again gotten to the picture only when the child has thought about the topic, tried to understand. The child has made an attempt to understand the topic and given certain answers. So, whatever answers we get from the students, basis that we can try and understand whatever concepts, what all concepts have been understood by the child and where do I need to focus upon. So this is
Yes.
one approach of flipped classroom, Mashud, which can be taken forward by the teachers.
Yes, Shelly, I think Mrs. Sweeti Satyavadi ma'am has also mentioned that giving them some idea of the previous knowledge. So I think for a flipped classroom approach, it is important that we are able to do it for a topic where there is some previous knowledge which the child already has. I think one concern which has been raised by Mrs. Shabnam ji is most of the time we send videos, they only respond but don't play the video. So how can we forward into the next step, which is a thing? So I think that is a fair concern. And for this, I think the flipped classroom approach could be an interesting way, because here the child not only has to watch the video but also has to answer certain questions. So when, for example, we'll now show an example where if you have to show a video on, let's say, the urinary system in biology. So then when we are sharing that video with the students, we also share certain guiding questions, and the student has to not only watch the video but also watch the video in the context of those questions, keeping those questions in mind, and then answer those questions. And they could answer it on the WhatsApp group. So for example, the video which we are going to show you right now can be shared on the WhatsApp group, the link to it, and there can be 3 questions, and you can suggest to your students that now before tomorrow's lecture which we have on Zoom, you have to answer these 4 questions by watching the video. Students will come up with responses. Some may come up with good responses. Some may come up with, not completely well good responses. But it will start this process of independent learning as well. So that is something which is very important as well.
Right, Mashood. So we will be sharing a video in some time. And essentially, when we talk about, for example, the flipped classroom approach, the idea is that, like ma'am mentioned, try and cover topics or identify topics which can have context or sort of, linking to the previously learned knowledge. So when we identify certain materials, learning materials for the child, it is important to also try and see that these materials are relevant to the previous learned knowledge.
Yes, it's also important that we have a pre-existing knowledge of the child. It should be on something which might have been taught previously. For example, in language, you always have this aspect that you have tense, or in Hindi, for example, you have paryayavachi shabd, and that topic remains across different classes as well. So building on previous knowledge is something which flipped classroom can use. So let's see one video which is there on Gurushala. I think one teacher had also asked if the portal is free of cost. So the portal is completely free of cost. It's www.gurushala.co, and it's an open platform. Teachers and students both can use it for free. So let's watch this video on the urinary system and see how we can use this resource in a flipped classroom approach.
The urinary system is also known as the renal system, and it consists of the kidneys, the ureters, the bladder, and the urethra. Your kidneys are bean-shaped organs that are about the same size as a computer mouse. To find your kidneys, put your hands on your lower back and slide them up until you feel your ribs. Your kidneys are just behind a layer of muscle there. All your blood flows through your kidneys 400 times a day in order to filter out the waste. However, they also have other roles, as explained in the video, What is Homeostasis? Keeping your body balanced is very important, and the urinary system plays an important role in this. It keeps the water levels, ions such as potassium, sodium, calcium, magnesium, and phosphate, pH, and blood pressure as close to constant as possible. The blood goes into the kidneys via the renal arteries. It is then filtered into a million small filtering units called nephrons. Waste is then removed and flows down the ureters to the urinary bladder. The clean blood then leaves the kidneys via the renal veins and can return to the body. The liquid that collects in the bladder is called the urine. It contains urea, which is a waste product from the breakdown of the excess protein. It also contains excess.
So Shelly, as we saw in this video, that this is a concept video, and I think many teachers are using concept videos during lectures and sharing it with WhatsApp also. So how can the flipped classroom approach, what kind of questions can be asked based on this video?
Right. So if we talk about, for example, Mashood, the flipped classroom approach, we have shared. If we share this kind of a video with the child, one thing that we can ask the child to do is to create a flow chart on whatever processes they have understood in through this video. So, for example, what is the system? How does the urinary tract function? What is the importance of urea, for example? How does it flushes out? What is the overall process? We can actually ask the students to create a flow chart and then share it with us. And basis their flowchart, we can get an understanding as to how much the child has seen the video, how much they have understood the video. So these things can be done as part of the flip approach, wherein we have shared the video initially, I mean, in the first place, and then we ask the child to share their information in a much more structured format. So like we can tell them to create a flowchart and share with us, or we can also put in few questions. 2 or 3 questions can be asked with this kind of a video, and we can tell them to answer those questions. So essentially, this could be one way of sort of taking sessions.
Yes. So I think this is an interesting way where we can give certain questions and flip the classroom. Many of the teachers have also mentioned that they're using similar kind of a strategy as well. So with this, we come to the end of the watch section, and we would encourage all our teachers to after the session, explore the Gurushala content library as well, and explore some of the resources. There are resources from more than 10 subjects and different classes and different topics as well. So please feel free, and we are in the process of continuously adding more and more resources, collaborating with different institutions to get their free content curated on the website as well. And within Watch we looked at how what are the different skills that can be developed using Watch. Uh, at the same time, this is a place where we can use certain introduction videos to make students more inquisitive and become more self-directed, independent learners. And we talked about the flipped classroom approach as well. From here, let's move on to think. And we have the next activity, which is guess the word coming in front of all the teachers, which will require all of us to think about the riddles. So here, the first riddle says, "What's black when you get it, red when you use it, and white when you have completed the usage? Who am I?" The second riddle talks about, "If a man carried my burden, he would break his back. I'm not rich, but I leave silver in my track. Who am I?" And the third riddle is, "What is that has no weight but is heavy enough to sink a ship?" So these are three riddles, and no one is allowed to use Google. And we'll have to find the answer to the riddle as soon as possible. The timer has started, and let's see who is able to get all the three riddles correctly.
Right, Mashur, teachers, I think they are all thinking about the riddles, because we also know that to solve certain riddles, there is a thinking process involved. So generally what teachers try and do with students, when they try and sort of give students a trigger to think about a topic, here the riddles are playing a trigger for the teacher to think about certain things. So we have already started receiving Mashud answers from teachers. Shweta ma'am says first is coal. The answer is coal, is what ma'am says. Munmun ji says that iron. Iron is, I think, the one of the answers to the riddle. Anaga ji says air for third. So we've started getting answers already, Mashood. There are only 5 seconds. Only 5 seconds are left now. We would want
Yes.
all the teachers to hurry up.
I think Rekha Sharma ji has said a blackboard. So I think she's mentioning the blackboard starts as black, then becomes red and white. So that's also an interesting
Right.
idea. Coal, a lot of teachers are saying coal for the second one, I think. No, for the first one. So a lot of teachers have said coal. Do we have someone who's got all the three? I think there is Bharti Soniji who has, I think she has guessed all the three. So let's see what the answers are, Shelly, and
Yeah.
let's try and
Yeah.
understand if who's the winner of this round.
Right. So we have our answers here. The answer to the first riddle is coal. The second riddle is snail, and the answer to third one is hole. So yes, teachers have Mashud. They have given correct answers. Hole, for example, I could see that there are certain teachers who have given the third answer as whole towards the end. So they were able to identify the riddle. Probably a lot of thinking was involved, so they could identify the correct answer to the third riddle towards the end only. So whole is the third answer. Yes, Mashood. So these
Yes.
are the answers to the three riddles.
Yes, and Jayanti ma'am, congratulations. She's mentioned all the three answers correctly. And so, congratulations to her, and a lot of responses as well. So I think this was one riddle which made us put our thinking hats, and that's something which we as teachers also try to do with our students. So, with this, we would like to come to our next activity, where we look at the fastest finger first. What are the three different ways in which a teacher can make students think about the topic after you have delivered the topic, either through a textbook or through a lecture or through a video? How do we make students think about it? What kind of resources do we use to make students think about it? We have 1 minute, and let's see what kind of responses our teachers share. We would like to request all teachers to share it on the chat section as well.
Right. So the timer has started, Mishud, and teachers, I think now they're thinking what kind of activities do they do with the child to make them think about a topic. So there are various ways that teachers adopt. It could be, I mean, I will not speak about them. Let's look at the teachers' answers first. There could be various ways that teachers are adopting, and every teacher has a different way of, teaching and learning. So teaching practices change, and so does the methodologies change. So now we've started receiving answers already, Mashood. We've got one answer of puzzles. So puzzle could be one way through which you can sort of trigger a child's thinking process. So that could be one way. Taruna
Yes.
ma'am says, Mashood, that providing some hints about, giving them probably some leading questions, giving them some hints about certain topic, they can also initiate the thinking process of a child. Right. The timer has also ended, Mashood, here, and we have
Yes.
got certain answers from the teachers as well.
Anju ma'am
We,
is yes. Rachna Kumari ma'am is talking about quiz, Google form assessment, exit polls. That's a very interesting
very
answer, and I think Narang ji is talking about excursions. That is quite challenging in present time, but there are other virtual ways to do these excursions as well.
right. Shweta ma'am also says that there could be certain riddles that can be sort of, given to a child to think about certain topics. So yeah, Mashud, if we see, teachers have shared their various ways and practices that they adopt to make a child think about a certain topic. Now, if we talk about, for example, learning material, if we talk about what kind of resources can be shared with the child to make them think about a certain topic or a certain concept, and what kind of resources are available on Gurushala for sort of initiating this kind of conversation with the child. So we would want you to sort of take us through a certain through certain materials that can be shown on Gurushala. Yes.
Absolutely. So, like we saw some resources in the watch section on Gurushala, we would like to show our audience certain resources on thinking. So, in thinking is an aspect which, again, going back to the 6 skills in the Bloom's taxonomy, what we have to think of those 6 skills, and basis on that, we have to share those resources. So, if we feel, for example, that students have to think more on, have to develop more of analyzing skills, then online resources should be based on that. If we think it should be more on creation or recall, then based on that we have different resources for that. So if we go back to Gurushala, and we again go back to the content library section, uh, like Shelly had shown, that there are these different subjects based on which you can see the resources, and here you'll see that there are different content types. So 2 types of resources which are very helpful to make students think are basically did you know type of questions. So like trivia type of questions, that did you know, which are based on real life. And here, for example, we can take the example of weather reports. So I'll just show a sample as well. And these are basically PDF, small PDF documents. So what we also have to make sure that the resources which we share with our students in the things section have to be, they should not be very heavy as well. So a PDF file generally is 1 or 2 MB, which can be shared easily on a WhatsApp as well. So here you can see that the weather report could be one resource which we can use in geography or science as well. And did you know kind of resources have, for example, again, questions. So do you know how weather conditions are represented visually? Do you know when we studied about weather reports? And these type of resources are available in different subjects as well on the internet. So you can use some of them. Uh, and what you'll see that they start with certain questions. I think in our textbook as well, we have points to ponder upon. In our NCRT textbooks also, we have real life examples. Did you know types of questions? There's a section in each chapter, so we can give certain of those resources for the students. So this is one kind of a resource which we can use, which is did you know, which connects the concept to the different information and trivia in the real life. The second aspect, the second type of resource which we can also use, which again on Gurushala you can use the filter option as well, is the daily life examples. So as you can see that in the content type, if you filter again and go to daily life examples, so this is also one more aspect where you can help students connect the concept to the real life. So if we see, for example, different resources here, you can click on, for example, the use of fuse, again, a concept which is used in one of our science subjects. And this kind of a PDF document can be shared with students where they are given a real life example of the light bulb, right? Every house has a light bulb. So how can students, like know more about what is the tungsten material used in the bulb, and these different examples from real life can also be used. These resources, Shelley, can also be used for teaching different subjects as well.
Right, Mashood. So, like you showed here about the usage of fuse, which is a daily life concept. Now, when we talk about this kind of a material, we can always give them leading questions with it. So, for example, in what all appliances at home do you think fuses are used? Now, of course, I mean, child may want to go back to internet, or may want to go back to the parent or the teacher to identify and to find out what kind of appliances are there where these kind of this kind of a fuse is used. So talking about, for example, the materials which are being shared, it is important to also uh, provide appropriate questions. So asking the right questions is also a key to make the child think about certain topic. And when we are sharing certain resources, we can always incorporate certain very important daily life questions which can be asked to the child, which sort of initiates the process of thinking. So this can be also done with these learning materials.
Right. And there are other resources which we will be sharing with our teachers tomorrow. For example, how interactive games and simulations can also be used to talk about different types of thinking aspects. That's something which we'll also be sharing tomorrow as well. So there are a lot of different types of resources which we would encourage our teachers to see on Gurushala and use it in the day-to-day teaching. Now, if we look at the next aspect, Shelley, which is about how we can think about our surroundings from think about our concepts from our surroundings. So now students are embedded and they are like located in their local communities. How do we make students think from their environment, from the surroundings? What kind of ideas can we share with where students are learning independently?
Right. So when we talk about surroundings, because during this time we all know, all of us are learning from home, and even when we were in our schools, then also there was a certain environment provided to us. We had a playground, we had certain facilities available to us. So if we talk about certain things or certain ideas or activities that can be sort of thought about when we talk about learning from surroundings, one is of interdisciplinary projects, a very important idea that can be inculcated in our regular teaching and practice methods, wherein if I would want to read this line for all of you, subject teachers can plan together and design a set of activities for students which are common and cover their subject concepts. So this is one sentence which essentially sort of talks about the interdisciplinary projects, Mashood.
Yes. And as we can see that there are some keywords, which is planning together, set of activities, common topics, and covering the various subjects. So what we were talking about, the collaboration skill among teachers, interdisciplinary projects can be one very good way to develop these collaboration skills as well. And if we have to identify such a project, Shelley, what kind of steps can we follow to identify and create this project?
Right. So when we talk about creating interdisciplinary projects, now these projects essentially could be for a duration of 2 to 3 weeks. And one important thing is to first identify what kind of an interdisciplinary project do I want to create. So we have a checklist for identification of project. The first point is that we should try and keep in our mind that whatever project we are identifying, it covers 4 to 5 subjects concepts, so that various subject teachers can sort of identify certain topics of their subject and teach the children through this whole project idea. Second is students should be able to find the resources at home. Important element. Whatever project we are choosing, the resources shall be available at home during time of lockdown, and when we are in school, of course, we think about resources which are available in the school premise. So that is a second thing. Thirdly, it should be related to daily life of students. Again, an important element. When we are creating any project, we should try and focus upon the fact that it is linked to a daily life example or real life examples for the child, so that they are able to relate in a much better way. Fourth, project can engage the family as well. So are, for example, the family members, the parents or siblings involved in creation of a project? We can talk about that as well. The fifth point is project should allow his or her learning of the past. So, for example, one of the teacher also said that linking the concepts to the past learned knowledge is important. Similarly, we can identify as to whether my project is covering any past learned knowledge or not, and whether I have to share material for that as well. And the fifth point is project should give the student a feel of accomplishment on completion. A very important point, of course, if I have created a project or an activity which has been done over a duration of 2 to 3 weeks, it is important that it also gives a feeling of accomplishment to the child because I've put in a lot of effort. So these are some things that can be taken in consideration when we are identifying the project. And if we see, for example, 4 or more ticks in a box, then we can create the project and we can go ahead with the next steps. So these are certain checklists that can be kept in mind.
Right. And if we take an example, so for example, the case of a medicinal garden. So that is a concept that is a the project consists of many topics. You can teach multiple topics using this. Students can find the resources near their house or inside the house as well. It could be a soil, it could be different aspects of a plant. It is connected to daily life as well, and projects can engage families as well. So even if these 4 points are there, we can go ahead and select a project like medicinal garden as well, and there'll be more ideas which we'll share with the audience after the training as well. So Shelly, for these, what kind of activities do we have to identify as a teacher?
Right. So when we are planning such kind of a project, because it is going, for example, in for a duration of 2 to 3 weeks, we of course have to identify certain tasks. One is planning the task. So we have to identify certain weekly tasks for the child, so that this whole process of project is done in a proper manner, and it is done by the child in a regular manner, and it is not lost in between. So identifying tasks, weekly tasks is important. And one of the tasks could be of a writing task here, wherein we try and tell the child that towards the end of the week, you have to write all your experiences or your challenges or any other information that you sort of gathered during your weekly task. So that could be one thing. Secondly, make a list of the activities for the students. So what all activities have to be done during the creation of a project, they need to be shared with the child. Thirdly, a project book. It is important that when we are creating any project, we are doing certain activity for a duration, we also try and create a project book for that. So for example, we create a scrapbook which showcases all our accomplishments, all our activities. Similarly, we can create a project book wherein we can sort of put in certain images, certain pictures, we can share our experiences, we can write about the challenges. A project book can be created for this. And fourthly, planning a my project day. A weekly my project day is important, wherein, for example, we can decide one common day, probably a Saturday or a Friday, wherein we all will meet through a telephonic call or maybe through a video conferencing. We can meet and we can discuss about our activities during the week. Related to the project. So that is my project day, wherein I talk about, so like we have a happy hour, we have we have defined certain hours in school also. Similarly, we can also think of a my project day wherein we talk about our experiences, we share certain information, and we try and aware my friends or my teacher also about what I have done throughout the week. So this can also be a part of this whole project idea.
Right. And if we see if we see an example, for example, we talked about the interdisciplinary project while creating a medicinal garden. So I think one question is what are the different activities we can identify for the same? So some of the activities which you can identify for a medicinal garden is, for example, preparing the land and selection of the plants. That could be the task of the first week. The second week, we could look at sowing of the plants and watering of the plants. In the third week, we could look at making name cards for each plant and study the growth of plants. And in the last week, we can look at completing the project book. So whatever ideas we identify, it should be over a period of 1 to 2 months. And in fact, this could be a project which we can give our students as as the output of this lockdown as well. That during the lockdown, we have come up with this interdisciplinary project where students and teachers have collaborated and at the same time learned as well. In fact, this project after the lockdown ends, or maybe even during the lockdown, can be displayed and shown online in front of the whole school community. in a Zoom call on the Facebook page of the school and say that these are the projects that have been done by our students, even if the classes are not happening inside the school. If we have to, Shelly, look at how do we map the different concepts that are taught using this project. So if we take the example of medicinal garden, what all topics in different subjects can be covered by implementing this project?
Right. So important element is that we use the word interdisciplinary. Then automatically there has to be certain subjects which are mapped to a project idea. So if I talk about medicinal garden only, Mashood, we can map the subjects as follows. So for example, one of the subject could be science, second could be mathematics, geography, social science, and writing, which could be of language. Now, if I talk about what all concepts or topics can be covered, they could be as follows. So for example, when the first activity of preparation of land takes place by the child, a science teacher, for example, can talk about the types of soil topic. What are the types of soil? What kind of soil is required by which kind of plants? That can be one topic that can be covered. A mathematics teacher can talk about, for example, area and perimeter. So, for example, when I'm preparing my land, I will try and identify the land first, and then secondly, of course, I will try and see as to what is the measurement of that land, how much is the length and the breadth, and in what area will I prepare the land. So a mathematics teacher can talk about area and perimeter concept. When we go ahead, for example, one could be when we are talking about selection of plants, when the child is trying to select what kind of plants have medicinal value. A science teacher can again talk about plants and their uses. For example, what is the medicinal value of every plant? That can be taken forward. In the activity of, for example, watering of plants, a geography teacher can talk about the climate. So climate essentially is a topic which is of geography, what kind of climatic conditions are required by various plants. That could be one topic covered by the geography teacher. Similarly, if we talk about making name cards for plants, when that activity or task is happening, for example, the social science teacher can talk about the community development of the topic. And the teacher can also talk about when we are creating, for example, the project book, we can talk about various professions of agriculture which are involved, and we can sort of explain the concept of professions, what which profession is linked to what, and how this whole process of agriculture is involved. So that can be done. Similarly, a language teacher can play a very important role here. For example, when we are starting the task, she can play a very important role in articulation of this whole project idea. So, for example, the first step could be of like I identified the project, and then what was my journey like. I wrote about the project idea, I wrote about my experience, I wrote about the challenges. So articulation could be something that the English teacher, the language teacher can essentially talk about and play a role in. And she can teach a topic on of English using this kind of an idea.
Yes. Shelly, we would like to take just a couple of comments. So I think Madhu Lata Nigam ji is talking about how can we use this for Hindi and Sanskrit. So, ma'am, as we were saying that language and writing is one very important aspect. We talked about the project book. तो प्रोजेक्ट बुक के अंदर जो आपके अलग अलग टाइप में आपको जो एक्टिविटीज के बारे में लिखना है, अगर आप मेडिसिनल गार्डन के बारे में लिख रहे हैं, सो वी कैन ऑल्सो लुक एट things like writing the names of the Sanskrit names or the Hindi names of the herbs using which we are making the project on. At the same time, the project idea here again, the different language teachers can also be part of it, and the writing aspect is something which they can work on. I think at the same time there is one concern which one teacher had talked about as to projects. Yes, so Shreya ma'am talks about how many students and parents treat projects as not a very useful activity. They tend to put more emphasis on book learning. How do we deal with this kind of mentality? So that's a very important question, ma'am. And again, this is a mentality which which is it is there because of larger education structures, and what that it puts emphasis on more on parents and students putting more emphasis on book learning. While book is of course very important, and that is something which we already use, but there are so many other aspects of the project which are very important. So for example, the collaboration skills, the communication skills, the application knowledge. Now all these are aspects which are very important for a child even if they appear for competitive exams, and in the future also, after work also, this is something which even in job interviews in the future, creation of projects and how you have developed those skills is very important. So we can communicate to the parents that creation of projects not only enhances your conceptual knowledge but also application knowledge and 21st century skills as well, which is very important. That parent might not find it very important right now, but in the future when they are in the job market, that is something which will be very important. Also, if you're assessing students on the project, then automatically the student has to do well as well. So I think we have to address this mentality, and it's very important as well. So so at the same time, there is another idea where the language teachers, they can create a separate project of their own as well. For example, the Sanskrit, Hindi, and English teacher together can form a project where a dictionary is created of different languages. There's like a glossary, and that glossary can be used. So, for example, if we see the project of medicinal garden, so the science and the math teacher is talking about perimeter, geography teacher is talking about the soil, etc. The languages teacher can bring in the different words which are used in this project and make a glossary out of it. So this is, in fact, this is going to be a very impactful outcome of the whole project, of the whole learning process, and it will truly be, it can be something which can be displayed in front of the whole school as well during the lockdown. You can add it on the Facebook page as well. And we would be very happy in case you share these ideas with us, and we upload it on Gurushala as well. So, Shelly, I think we would like to show our audience an online course as well on interdisciplinary learning.
Right, Mashud, adding to what you also said, Preeti ma'am, for example, was talking about what kind of projects can be there for primary students. Now, when we talk about primary students, essentially, we can have some project ideas like a tie and dye project that can be done with certain small children, wherein, because colors is something that attracts the child. So what we can do is that we can create a very small tie and dye project. What all steps can be there to sort of create certain elements wherein sort of a cloth is there, and then there are certain dyeing techniques. So essentially we can always talk about certain elements and certain project ideas as well. We can also share with you all a few project ideas which can be helpful to get implemented inside the classroom, so that can be done. And one thing, like Mashud, you mentioned, was that we also want to think of and want to see a course on Gurushala, which is on interdisciplinary learning. Now, when we talk about, for example, the courses, essentially, we have all the courses available on Gurushala free of cost. All these courses essentially are self-paced, and they can be taken up by the teachers at their own sort of time intervals. It is not something that has a time duration and a limitation, so that can be taken forward. They're all free of cost. Again, a second point which has to be kept in mind. As you all can see, again, I am on the homepage of Gurushala, and like I mentioned that to sign up essentially for the Gurushala portal, we can use our Gmail account. The sign up button comes here on the top right. You can use your Google account, Gmail account, or your Facebook account, or your mobile number. So moving ahead, if we talk about, for example, the courses section, as we can see here, if I click on the courses section, I will be able to see the list of courses which are available here. We can filter the courses as per various categories. So, for example, we were talking about the 21st century skills of students. Similarly, when we talk about 21st century teachers, what kind of courses are available for teachers to build and hone their 21st century skills? So we have a category of 21st century teachers, content resource creation, essentially, wherein we talk about, for example, what type of resources can be created by teachers, and what kind of softwares can be used, what kind of strategies can be implemented. So content resource creation courses are there, and innovative teaching strategies. So what kind of new teaching strategies can be adopted by teachers? We also have a category of courses on that. Now talking about the interdisciplinary learning. So all of you can see, for example, list of courses here. If I click on the interdisciplinary learning course, I will be navigated to this particular course page. Now, I can see here certain modules. So these are essentially independent modules. Like the first module is linking the concepts, second is collaborative method of teaching, and the third is multidisciplinary approach. So these are three independent modules that can be done to understand various elements of this course of interdisciplinary learning. We have an overview section which talks about, for example, what is the course about, skills that will be covered, the syllabus which mentions about the three modules, and then certain FAQ questions. Uh, so this is how, for example, the course structuring is like. If I click on one particular module, I will be able to see certain sections here. So I see, for example, a relate section, explore section, assess section, and a further reading section. So essentially, relate, for example, will consist of a video and certain questions. Explore section will again consist of a video, a very simple infographic, and a game. Assess section will consist of certain questions, and in case we want to, for example, know more about the particular module or the topic in detail, we can also access the further reading sections, which has additional resources and further reading documents. So this is how the structuring of module is laid, and each section has to be done one after the other. So we start with the relate section, we move on to explore, then we complete the assess, and thereafter we go to the further reading section. This is how the course structuring looks like, and all the courses on Gurushala are free of cost. One important thing is also that on completion of any course or on completion of any independent module, you will also get a certificate of completion. A certificate gets an online certificate gets automatically generated after completion of any course or any module, and that can also be used by us at a later stage. So this is how, Mashood, the overall structuring of the courses looks like.
Right. And as Shelly mentioned that to enroll in any course, so you will have to go to www.gurushala.co, and there's this course on interdisciplinary learning is there. You can click on the interdisciplinary learning course. For the first step is to enroll in the course. So there'll be an enroll course button. Once you click on that, the second step would be to start the course. So there'll be a start course button. And then once that happens, then the first module is unlocked. So as we can see in the course, and if you can just zoom in a bit on the screen as well, we'll see that the first module is of linking the concepts. So when we click on linking the concepts, as Shelly mentioned, that there'll be 4 sections, and all these 4 sections they open one by one. So if you'll have to see the relate video completely and see the questions completely, answer the 2 questions completely in the questionnaire. Only once you see the whole thing, that is when the explore section opens up. If there is if for example, by chance we skip the video or skip the questions, we are not able to go to the second section. So that is the second section, and then after that we will have the explore section, where there will be an understanding linking the concepts video. There'll be an infographic which you have to see, and then there's also a HTML5 game, an interactive game of planning. And then finally there'll be an assess section where there will be a questionnaire which will have 10 multiple choice questions. And as soon as you complete this module, a certificate will be generated which will be stored in my repository. So if you are able to show our teachers the my repository section as well, where on the top right you will see that there are these there is this my repository section, and when you click on that, then on the left side you can see that there are the my certificate. So in the my certificate section, the certificate will be generated with your name, with the module and the date on which you have completed, and this is a certificate which you can then download and also use it for future purpose. So now this is very important because today's task, Shelly, which we will be sharing with our teachers, has got to do with completing the courses. So as we can see that we are about to just end today's session as well. So interdisciplinary project is one course which has to be done.
Right.
Yeah. So if we look at today's task, which is to come on the screen, before we discuss today's task, we will we'll also mention what are the things that we'll be covering tomorrow as well. So today we have covered watch and think. Tomorrow we are going to cover, first of all, practice. So within practice, what are different types of resources which you can use? Some of our teachers are also asking if there are any worksheets on Gurushala. So the answer to this is yes, which we'll discuss tomorrow as well. So practice में आप किस टाइप की चीजें यूज कर सकते हैं. The second is assessing remotely. How to conduct assessments with children. I think those who have internet, we can use certain online platforms like Google Forms and quizzes. For those who do not have very good internet connection, we can use different non-technological methods as well, which we'll discuss tomorrow. The third aspect is post-lockdown situation. So I think when the lockdown ends, there'll be certain situations we'll be facing. For example, social distancing, student engagement. Hyperactive students because they're meeting their friends after such a long time. So how do we deal with such situations post the lockdown is something which we'll talk about. And the final aspect will be on content creation. Many of us are already creating certain resources using digital softwares like screen recording, whiteboard animation, and infographics. So tomorrow we'll be looking at how on your own computer by your own self you can create certain worksheets and infographics and very effective and beautiful infographics which then you can share with your students for their studies. So this is for tomorrow's session. Tomorrow we'll join you again at 10:30. Very important announcement now is today's task. So today's task is the best entries of today's task will be shortlisted and they will be announced in tomorrow's session at the end of tomorrow's session. So we have teachers across India who will be participating in this. The very first step of this task, which is a requirement in order to be eligible for the certificate as well, is first of all, you have to click on the link given in the YouTube description on the chat. So very soon we will be sharing the link of the Gurushala portal and the task on the description as well as the chat section as well. Once you open the description, you will have to click on www.gurushala.co. That is the name of the website. Please remember that it is .co and not .com. So gurushala.co pe aap jayenge. The third step will be to complete the first module of course on the interdisciplinary learning course. The first module has to be completed from this course, which Shelly has just presented in front of us. And finally, we also have where you have to join the community, the teacher community on Gurushala by the name of Project Teaching and attempt the task which is given. So I'll just repeat the 4 steps again. The first is you have to go to the YouTube description, the video which you're watching. We have to go to the description, and from there you can go to the gurushala.co link. All these steps are given there. From there you go to the Gurushala website. The third step is we have to go to the courses section and there go and enroll in the interdisciplinary learning courses. And from there you have to start the course and do the first module. And the first module will take you around 30 to 45 minutes to complete. And in case you are also reading the additional material, it will take you a total of 2 to 3 hours. But what we would request you is that you can see the the relate, explore, and assess section in the module, and that will complete your module. Fourth step will be to join the community, teacher community on the Project Teaching and attempt the task given. So if you can just give a demonstration of how this task is to be completed, I'll just share my screen for this.
Right, Mashood. So like we have seen here, there are certain steps to complete the task, and now we will be seeing a small demo that will essentially tell us about what steps need to be taken to complete the task. And also, we have to keep in mind that completion of task is an important step to get the certificate of accomplishment. And tomorrow we will be sharing an assessment form also. So the assessment form plus the task has to be completed to get the certificate of accomplishment.
Right. So to do the task, so as soon as the session gets over, we have to go to www.gurushala.co. This can be again logged in using your computer or mobile phone. So both are there. Like Shelly mentioned that you can also see the website either in Hindi or English. Then in the courses section, as you can see here, that you have to go to the courses section. Once you click on the courses section, you will have the various courses which are available here. You'll have to scroll down to interdisciplinary learning. And from here, you will have to enroll in the course. So because I've already enrolled in the course, the enroll now button is not being shared, but you'll have to click on the enroll now button. It'll ask you to log in. Like Shelly mentioned that you can log in using your Google, Facebook, or mobile number. And once you have logged in, then you'll have to start the course and then do the first module, which is linking the concepts. You'll have these 4 sections. Again, within relate, you'll have to see the whole video, and then the questionnaire will open up. And then the explore section, you'll have to see the video, the infographic, and play the game. After you have completed this module, the certificate will appear. It will show that you have won the certificate. Then what you have to do is to go back to the Gurushala homepage. And in the Gurushala homepage, you will see that there are these, on the left side, there are these four menu buttons: the leaderboard, the teacher communities, the teaching modules, and the teacher stories. Here, you'll have to click on teacher communities. And once you click on this, you will see that there are multiple teacher communities which are already existing there. There's e-learning, hobby corner content in the project teaching. So you can see that there are already almost 200 community members who are joined here. You'll have to click on the project teaching menu, and you'll have to click on join. So, and once you join, then you will have to go on project teaching, and this is where your task is. So essentially, once you click on project teaching, once you join the community, here you will see that the instruction of the task is given. Basically, the information that has been shared during this session today in the project where we talk about interdisciplinary project, and also the information which is given, the strategies which are given in the online course of interdisciplinary learning, which you will be doing. Using that information and using your own ideas, you have to create an interdisciplinary project idea. And based, you have to identify what are the subjects that you will cover, what are the activities you will cover, and what are the learning outcomes as well. And you can just write that on a, either if you want, you can express it in the form of your notes. It can be in the form of a picture, or in fact you can just click here on create a post and write your project idea here with your name. Please do write your name and school as well. And then you can, if you want to add any links, you can add links. And then if you have a file to attach, for example, if you have drawn something on a notebook or you've written notes, you can take a picture and attach a file here and click on done. And then your entry will be submitted here. So this is today's task, Shelly, and this is we will before we end today's session, we would like to again remind our viewers that the task is something which has to be done, which will be followed tomorrow by an assessment on the Google form. So both these will be considered while providing the certificate of recognition, which Shelly will be talking more about in conclusion.
Right. So, Mashood spoke about the task, and we also mentioned about a certificate of accomplishment which will be provided at the end of day 2. So, towards the end of day 2, which is tomorrow, we will be sharing an assessment form with all of you. And all the teachers who take an attempt at the assessment form and receive 50% and above will be given a certificate of accomplishment. And also, it is important that we complete today's task as well, because that is also factored in. And tomorrow's assessment will involve questions of the module that we will be doing today as a task, which is linking the concepts. Tomorrow's questions will also have certain sort of elements of this module. So we would request all of you to enroll into the course and do the first module, and also then go ahead and share your project idea in the community section like Mashood shared. Going ahead, it is important to also know that in case you have any kind of queries or you need any assistance or help from us, we would want you to contact us at the mentioned mobile number, or you can also contact us at the mentioned email ID. So you can get in touch with us and you can share your queries or share your feedback, because that is also very valuable. And tomorrow, towards the end of the day, we will also be sharing a feedback form. So assessment and feedback form will come to you together. So there also we will be taking your inputs and suggestions. And in case you need any queries or you have any sort of you need any assistance, you can always contact us at the mentioned details. We would also, again, towards the end of the conclusion, talk about the fact that Gurushala is an initiative which is it's an initiative of Indus Towers Limited and Vodafone India Foundation, and is implemented by Pratham Education Foundation. So yes, we have a portal and a platform present for all the teachers. We would want all of you to utilize it at your best. And since everything is available on Gurushala free of cost, all the sections are available free of cost, we would want all of you to experience it, learn through it, and share your experiences with us. Yes, Mashood, now we are proceeding towards the conclusion, and we would want again all the teachers to join us tomorrow, Same time, same place. We will be joining again at the same place at 10:30 a.m. And we would want all of your presence. Thank you for being a part of the session today. Like we mentioned that in order to keep yourselves updated with various events that Gurushala is conducting, we would want all of you to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel and Facebook page so that you are also aware of various activities that Gurushala is doing. We thank you all for your active participation today. And yes, Mashood.
Yes, and Shelly, thank you for concluding the session. And just to add to your point, I think some teachers are also saying by when can they submit the task. So we would request the teachers to submit it as soon as possible, but latest by midnight today, so that we are able to consider all the entries and bring in the best entries tomorrow in front of us. We will also be sharing tomorrow's YouTube link on SMS and email to all the teachers. For some reason, if you're unable to receive the email or SMS, there might be sometimes there are some issues. You can come to the YouTube page tomorrow on the Gurushala YouTube page again, and the session will be live here at 10:30 a.m. However, we'll also be sharing it through email and SMS as well. So with that, we would like to again thank all the teachers from across India who have joined us today and gave us such interesting ideas and comments and very wonderful questions. Thank you very much, and we look forward to see you tomorrow at 10:30 a.m.
Thank you once again. Stay healthy and stay safe. Thank you.